You're listening to Unjiggered, a bartender podcast where we interview highly successful bartenders about their careers, lives, and the passion of bartending. Michele had a chance to interview Matt Whiley before he opened his new bar Scout on a recent trip to Sydney, and along with Adrian, Razel, and myself, Alex, we make up the Unjiggered team. Matt had a very interesting approach on how drinks should be made and how bars should be ran, so sit back and enjoy our interview with Matt Whiley of Scout. Enjoy.
Yeah, my name's Matt Whiley from Scout in London and soon to be Sydney.
Great. So we are here in Sydney. Matt, tell me, what is it that made you think to move to Sydney?
I think the weather and the beach more than anything. More than anything.
Good start.
I've been in London for sort of 12 years, and it's kind of a grinding city. And as I'm nearly 40 years old now, so for me, a different kind of life was needed, and different balance of perspective of what life could give me, and the beach was calling.
So your bar is about to open in a couple of weeks, but you have had the chance to work on a multitude of different bars throughout your career.
Yeah.
What is it that you love about the Scout concept, and why is it that specific concept that you wanted to bring over here?
I think it's a concept that's identifiable, but also I think Scout works better in Australia than it does in the UK. if I'm honest, in the UK it's a challenge because of the weather's not very good, and there's limited produce, and the UK buys so much produce from outside of the UK. Whereas Australia, the climate's so diverse that you can actually get everything here. It's like a continent in one country. So to be able to use mundane things like bananas that everyone takes for granted that are grown in Australia, there's citrus, there's all kinds of fruit, like tropical fruit, as well as obscure native Australian ingredients. So the landscape's so big. So Australia was a natural thing to bring Scout to Australia.
Mm-hmm. A bit of a chit chat about Scout itself as a concept. It's such a radical approach in a way to how the industry has developed in the past 10 years or so.
Yep.
If we look at it, bars that were in, like say 6, 7, 8 years ago, the Nigers and all that,
yep,
like trying to get ingredients that are as exotic as possible.
Yeah.
And now I think that the industry moved in the opposite direction, and Scout probably is one of the leaders. And could you tell us how did you get to this concept? Like, what is it that made you think, okay, this is what I want to do?
For me, seeing sort of the devastation of what mankind's doing to the soul destroying, like we're killing animals left, right and centre because we have a need, because we want everything all the time. And also, food's going to run out. The world's overpopulated. And at some point, we're not going to be able to just go and buy a pineapple off the shelf in the UK because there's not enough to ship to the UK. So what are we going to eat? How are we going to survive as humans? So you've got to live off what's available to you. It's going back to the way that humans used to go and forage. The hunter-gatherers would go and look for their food and hunt it and eat it. And I think it's kind of going back to that, but in a more modern form.
Mm-hmm. I see that. You're a very successful person. You've opened a multitude of bars. You wrote a cocktail book, which is quite an achievement itself. Tell us, how did you start to get interested into bartending, and when is it that it started for you?
I got interested in bartending because I like going out.
Oh, that's a good start.
and as a young man, I didn't really ever drink alcohol. I used to play cricket as a profession when I left school.
Oh, no way.
So I was kind of a sportsman, and it was only I progressed by being around a lot of the older guys in the team that they like to go out, and so I kind of got this newfound thirst as like a 21-year-old of going out and partying. So I kind of was always around bars, and then I stopped playing cricket. I got injured, and so it's kind of a natural progression from being a drunk sportsman to being a bartender.
So where did you start bartending? Like, do you have good memories of your first bartending job, or not really?
I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was a bar called Bar Humbug. Some of my friends worked there, and they had a venue on the first floor, and they said, "Can you come and help us? Someone's called sick." I was downstairs just like having a drink, and I went upstairs. I was unbelievably bad at it, but I got this sense of excitement, and it was over. It was like there and then I was like, maybe this is what I want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do after playing cricket, and it was just so much fun. More, above anything else, it was fun. And it gave me like a new purpose, and so my competitive nature as a sportsman came out, and I seeked out people who could help me improve.
At what stage did you get into cocktails or such? Or was it like right off the bat? What is it?
I think when did I start bartending? Quite some time ago now. But I think back then, the cool venues in the north were like venues like the Living Room. I don't know if you know of them. They had a really good training program that they put with their staff. And one of the guys who did my training session, he actually came over and like spent some time, was a guy called Chris Hoy. He's now a brand ambassador in the UK. And Chris spent some time as he taught us like a White Lady and all these sort of classic cocktails. We never made any of them because everyone wanted to drink like Jack Daniels and Coke and rum and Cokes and stuff and beers. But it still gave me an understanding of what else there was out there behind, except for like a spirit mixer. So I think the first book that I bought was The Difford's Guide.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book.
So, it was literally like pictures and pictures and pictures and recipes and started to like think about drinks. And I think I was at Bar Humbug for just over a year. And then I went to work at a bar called Skin. And that was a cocktail bar. It was a real like style bar, like mid sort of, when was it, like early 2000s, real style bar, like glass, leather.
Oh.
Yeah, if it opened now, you'd be like, wow, look at that, that's bad.
And what was that?
It was in Nottingham.
Okay.
But back then it was like really cool.
Okay.
And yeah, we had like a massive cocktail list, and where the blenders would go in, and again it was like it was like yeah, it was amazing, but it was really busy. It was like cocktails, post mix, spirit mixers, and it was like pumping out drinks for 3 hours a night. Then it would quiet down. You go out and drink after work. Yeah, and it was kind of there really, but it was still a casual nature of bartending. It wasn't like researching your days off, or like going out with your friends. It was still like work and home life. It wasn't all part of one. Yeah, it probably wasn't until I moved to London really that the serious cocktail things started to take off.
When did you move to London?
I moved to London just gone 12 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was 12 years in last October.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you're about to move to Sydney. So.
Yeah.
What is it that made you move to London? Why did you decide that was the next step for you?
For me, I felt I was getting, without being boring, I felt like I was getting stuck in a rut as a person. I wasn't learning anything else. I was working at kind of the coolest venue, running the venue, but it was stagnant. It was just work. Mm-hmm. Go home, do it again. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn new things. I'd always been excited about London. It was always an amazing city whenever I visited, and yeah, I decided that now was the time to take the chance.
And what were the main challenges that you had when you moved over to London? If there were any. Or...
Loneliness.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I found London incredibly lonely. It took me probably for a year. Mm-hmm. Everyone's so busy all the time, and even though you have like small pockets of friends, to actually see them is difficult because they've got a life, they've got other friends away from you. And I probably had 4 friends when I moved to London, and some of them weren't always around. So I found it really, really lonely. People didn't talk to each other. Yeah, it was a really hard year in my life to adjust to London life. But once it clicks, it's an amazing place.
It's true, right? As soon as you move into such a big city like London, you can feel detached from the rest of the people, which is very weird because you are swarmed by people. There's like tons of people.
There's people everywhere, but you don't know anyone. You don't know where you're going. It's so weird to be in a place that it's so familiar but so unfamiliar at the same time.
Does this help you develop a stronger bond with your team, or?
It makes me have an appreciation for when people come and move to London and how much help they need to adjust to the city. We generally recruit a lot of people from outside of London to the bar, and so we're really proactive of making people feel like really connected when they arrive, and giving them almost a family, especially if they come from overseas, because the minute you get that, the minute you kind of understand your way around, it becomes one of the best places in the world.
Agreed. I think it's such a dynamic place, right? There's so much happening, and I
think it's an easier place to move to now because there's a lot more. There's social media for one, which brings everyone closer together. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot more bars. There's a lot more restaurants. So it's easy. You've seen people on social media, so it's easier to connect with people. Whereas back then, Twitter was just starting. It was like no one really knew how to use Twitter. I'm that old. So yeah, it's a different place. And I think it's probably a bit easier now. And I think my story makes it seem really challenging, when actually probably now it's much easier.
So, in how many bars have you worked as an employee, and at what stage did you start thinking, I want to become an employer?
I think I've worked at 4 bars as an employee.
And which one was the last?
Zuma.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you like it, or?
Yeah, I loved it, but it was hectic.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is the one in Knightsbridge? Is
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy busy.
Yeah.
How many covers do you do in a day?
2 sittings for lunch. Sometimes 1 or 2 sittings for lunch, which is 140 per sitting. 3 at night.
Jesus.
That's restaurant, and then you've got walk-ins and people stood around the outside eating and drinking as well. Mental. I thought I was fast, and then I went to work at Zuma, and then you're on dispense on your own, because the 3 other bartenders are 4 deep of people, and there's people eating everywhere. So you're essentially making drinks for 140 people as well as people outside. I was waking up in the night hearing the docket machine. Yeah. Oh my god, so bad. But you learn from it. The manager wanted to fire me within a week.
Oh,
she said I was too slow.
Seriously?
Yeah, she said, and the other bartenders understood the situation, so they were taking some dockets and helping me out.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then once you know the specs, it becomes much easier, and you understand that you don't have to use a jigger all the time, because you couldn't survive there using jiggers. No one used jiggers at the time, and I was using my jigger.
There you go.
So yeah, it was. There was a change, but it also made me understand that when you come to work, it's game time. You can't go out, you can't have a hangover. If you have a hangover, you don't survive during shift. You have to walk. You walk in 2 hours, you are pushing hard. So if you don't push in your prep for 2 hours, you're not ready for service, and that's lunch and dinner. So it made me understand like what professional environment was all about.
So, apart from that, is there any other place that you worked at that shaped you in a specific way?
Not in terms of a venue, but the people maybe. I think I went to work at a nightclub called Moulton House on South Moulton Street, and it was like a private members' place. It was nightclub in the basement. Ground floor was a kitchen, and then first floor cocktail bar, and then private dining and stuff like that. And it was here that I met a guy called Andreas Sanos. And Andreas, he kind of introduced me into his style of drinks, but also he took me to Zuma. So without meeting him at this venue, and him taking me to Zuma wouldn't have made me think about drinks the way I do. Were about going to work, and when you're at work, you push on. There's no slacking. There's sometimes there's a time to slack around, but time is money, and it's about going into work and then pushing. So when you step away from work, you don't have to. Your private life becomes a bit easier. You don't have to work so much.
What is it that made you think, okay, now I'm ready to open my own place?
My flatmate at the time, we were thinking, how are we going to make money for someone else? Rather than making it for someone else, how are we going to make money for ourselves? So we were like, maybe we should start doing some events and stuff like this. And at the time, I spoke to my old business partner, Tom, and it's like, Tom worked for Diageo at the time, and I said, look, me and Brian are thinking about doing events. Do you think it's a good idea? You're like connected with the industry. And he said, like, me and Tristan are thinking about doing it as well. Why don't we have a conversation? So we had a conversation, and we decided maybe we should do something as a 4. They still were working at Diageo, so me and Brian would have to front up and be the front of it. We did one event in like 6 months. Yeah. Okay. And then an opportunity came in for us to go and do some consultancy in Azerbaijan. Okay. For a chef connection, and we sent them a quote over saying we can come for 2 weeks, 2 of us can come, and we thought we can I was still at Zuma at the time. We all had jobs, and we thought we could take 2 weeks holiday, go and do this job, and it'll maybe be lucrative for us. And we'd sent them a quote which we thought was like overinflated, and they said, "We'll pay you double, but we want you to come for a month." So we had some big decisions to make, and actually me and Tom quit our jobs. I quit Zuma, Tom quit Diageo, and we went for a month, and the other boys came and supported us for weeks, and they took holidays, and that kind of paid for Pearl back in 2010.
And how was Azerbaijan?
Amazing.
Yeah?
Really, really amazing. I kind of got institutionalized after a month. It's a very specific way of living, but there's also, it's very diverse, rich and poor.
Okay.
No middle ground. Mm-hmm. You're either super rich or you're low earner, and you work in the service industry and you don't get paid very much.
Okay.
And that was kind of the hard thing to figure out and to get your head around a little bit, because we were working for billionaires who owned like all the caviar in the country and all these, and cigarettes, and they were related to the president, and there was this world of billionaires, and then there's this world away from it where people are just eating bread on the street.
In hindsight, do you regret sending the quote that you sent them?
Probably.
You wanted an extra zero.
But then we arrived in this incredible place. It's a beautiful city, like a really, really beautiful city. And we worked in this like 20,000 square foot restaurant for a month, and we taught the sense of achievement from teaching bartenders who we couldn't speak the same language, who didn't even know what an Hawthorne strainer was.
Okay.
So
it must have been very, very challenging.
After leaving and walking away, watching them do blue blazers at the table.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So the sense of achievement that we got, the guys who we were training, like, they seized the opportunity to learn from us, and I think they're all accomplished bartenders, and they're I think some of them might even own venues now. So and then we had the opportunity to go back 2 years later and do another venue with the same guys.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and you can see like they have a Grand Prix there now, the Eurovision Song Contest. There's a lot of money being spent on to bring tourism to the country, and it's 5 hours away, and you don't ever really think about going, but it's a stunning place. Maybe like a smaller version of Dubai.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not as good at beaches, but that's that kind of vibe.
And the venue you opened, I'm assuming it was in Baku, right?
Yeah, both in Baku.
Yeah. What happened after that? Like after Baku?
So we came back from Baku. We found a site like really quickly, and we decided that maybe we had this pot of money that we just earned, and we were going to invest it and actually focus more on consultancy and then events. We saw that there was probably a place in the market to do consultancy. So we thought, what better place to have an office than to have a bar? Now we can have a showcase, we can make some money in the evening, hopefully. And so we spoke to the bank and said, well, look, we've got this amount of money, can you support us? We want to open a venue. We've found the site, and we were lucky to get a government grant through the bank. And yeah, it was a scary time. Not scary, it's kind of really exciting, but we got the keys. We had our budget set out. We had a £10,000 buffer. First day, that 10 grand's gone. The electrician said you need to be rewired. There's like an electrical issue. Everything needs to be brand new. So that 10 grand buffer was gone. Day one.
Good start.
And we were building it ourselves. We had an electrician to do the electrical work. My dad did the plumbing. But other than that, we had a stainless steel company, and we had someone to do a bar top. The rest we built ourselves.
And that bar was?
Pearl.
Fantastic.
Still there in Marylebone now.
So you work with Marian, I guess.
Yeah.
How is it to work with Marian? Like, I guess it changed a lot, did it? Because they were talking about like almost 10 years ago now.
It made me really self-conscious because he's really fucking good.
He works mega hard, doesn't he?
Yeah, like standing next to Marian, I was afraid to shake a cocktail because he looks so good. He's like the most amazing person to watch. He's so 100% behind his craft. To stand next to him, I just shake like a normal shake, like a bartender, and pour like a jigger like this. You obviously can't see it, but Marianne's beautiful to watch. And so for me, I just sometimes found myself watching him and like not making drinks, just passing him ducats,
staring at Marianne. Yeah. So, what were the main challenges? You mentioned a little bit about the financial issues that you had, but moving from behind the bar to owning a business? I'm sure you had some unforeseen challenges. What were the main challenges you had?
At the time, it was pretty plain sailing. I think it was easier to open bars then. There was hardly any bars in London back then. There was probably 10 great bars. Now there's 10 great bars in every single borough. It's such a different city. So for us, we opened Pearl. We were really quiet for like 3 weeks, and then Time Out came out. And back then, all you needed was a 5-star review from Time Out, and it was like, boom, we were busy. So it's a little different now. So I think there's more challenges now than there was back then. Now you're competing. The marketplace is flooded. You're competing with the best bars in the world, and by that I don't mean someone who's been ranked the best bar in the world, because there's some bars in London that are the best bars in the world, and they're not even recognised. So you're literally competing against everyone, but everyone's also very supportive in the same breath. So there's only a certain amount of people, and it's all about getting people's attention. Especially I think that's more the challenge. There's enough apps and there's enough people and accountants and all this sort of things that can provide you with the relevant support network to run a business. Probably the accountants, your best friend.
So you mentioned Time Out. You mentioned scoring systems and things like that. Nowadays, obviously the industry has evolved, and social media took a center stage in what we do, and as well as awards. Like there's a financial, getting awards makes financially sense. This is something that you're aware of as a business owner. Like it's something that is in the back of your mind, or it's a bit of a controversial question. So don't.
No. So I'm happy to share. I think awards are always nice. One, financially, but two, for morale for the team, and to keep them, probably to get them to really buy into a different concept. If you're winning awards, it's easier for people to get behind a concept. If you're not making any money, you're quiet, and you're not winning awards, like why is anyone going to stay working in a concept that you're flogging a dead horse for? But I think we have a very specific structure of how much money we can spend to produce a drink. We have to make it affordable for people. I think our drinks are £9.50, which is pretty cheap in London. So yes, there's one eye on the awards, but sometimes in a small venue, pushing too hard for awards doesn't necessarily mean financial reward, because you have to spend money on marketing. You have to spend money on sending bartenders traveling around the world. There's obviously it's very hard to be in the top 50 in the world without spending money to travel and put your bar's name on people's lips. People need to talk about you. People need to be able to see what you're doing. People need to taste your drinks, and they can't taste them if they've only got to come to London. You've got to sometimes go to them too. So I think sometimes, yes, there's a financial reward for people coming into your bar when you get on lists, but to get to that point, you've probably got to spend money to get there.
Yeah. So what happened after Pearl?
After Pearl, we opened the Whistling Shop, which is literally just it's got a new reincarnation now. JJ's bought it and turned it into an LCC, which is amazing. But yeah, we opened Whistling Shop, and Whistling Shop was really successful as well. Again, overnight, kind of busy a little bit, and then Time Out came out, boom. It's crazy. Yeah, and then we were lucky enough to get on some lists, and lucky enough to be nominated for some awards with Tails, and yeah, Whistling Shop went crazy.
So you work with Ryan.
Ryan left Colbert Row.
Okay.
And then while we were in the interim of waiting for Whistling Shop to open, Ryan did some shifts at Pearl as well.
Okay.
And
it
then
was more of a casual thing, wasn't it?
And then after Whistling Shop opened, we obviously saw the benefit in Ryan creating drinks because he's amazing. So he did work across both venues and lists, and freed us up to try and push the business.
You're probably one of the very few people who had the chance to work with Marian and Ryan, which I think they probably are the opposite when it comes to bartending styles. How would you think the two compare?
I think they've probably both got one main defining thing mentally is that they're incredibly driven people, and they're both super creative. They both share creativity. They both share drive and passion, and you can be two different ends of the scale. But if you've got these qualities, you're ultimately very similar characters too.
So the first time I had the chance to come to Whistling Shop, one of the things that I've noticed was you guys were looking into this thought, okay, how do we produce our own spirits?
Yeah.
And when did you get these ideas, or like when did you think, okay, now I need to start working more towards producing alcoholic ingredients from scratch?
I think it was, the concept was all about Victorian drinking, like Victorian almost speakeasy style whistling shops, and it was how we could recreate these ingredients and bring them into the modern world, and without making things from scratch. It's pretty difficult because these ingredients aren't available. So we decided we were going to build a little lab that you could. The venue lent itself. We didn't actually, where the lab was through the little glass, that was actually already there. So we didn't actually build that.
That's fantastic.
So that was kind of like, let's build a lab. Let's be able to see it. You will be able to give like Victorian drinking, but you're going to be able to see how the modern workings of Victorian drinking then is, and it kind of went from there really.
I still think it's something that it's at the core of what you do, right? Making your own ingredients from scratch, from zero. Do you think that in current days, rotovapes and things like this are overused, or do you welcome the fact that more bars are trying to go towards that way?
To be honest, back in the Whistling Shop days, me being in the lab doing creativity was probably maybe 1% of my job. I was generally doing all the paperwork and the books and the numbers and working with the accountant. That was
That's why
and doing all kind of the operational side of the venues. It wasn't until I went out and did my own thing that obviously that was a passion because I wanted to do it. But actually getting it in and being creative back again was when I started working on my own again. I think rotovaps shouldn't be seen as something that's weird and interesting and different. If someone wants to use one, I think they should be championed for it. Or if they don't want to, if a bar doesn't want to use it, they should also be championed for it. Is it necessary to have a rotovap? No, it's not. It's really not. You can make drinks. People make drinks day in, day out. Some of the best bars in the world with no lab equipment whatsoever. But if someone wants to, why not?
Right?
Why not? I think every single spirit, well, most spirits that a bar buys for their bar has been fermented and it's been distilled. Like, why is it different if someone wants to redistill it in their bar again to make a new flavour? It's not a new process. It's something that's already happened. We're just opening up the scale of what's achievable. So yeah, I'm all for it. If every bar in the world had one, it'd be amazing. If they don't, who cares?
It'd be amazing for Rotovap company.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be very happy.
Those things are not cheap. So what happened after Whistling Shop?
Whistling Shop, we opened a burger restaurant and a bar in Hampstead that didn't do too well. It didn't, but it was a great lesson for all of us to actually understand to be businessmen rather than just bartenders owning bars. We understood the need to let something go if it wasn't right, it wasn't successful, and to grow as businessmen and that was a good lesson for all of us, I think. And
sorry, what is it that didn't work out?
I think the location more than anything. We opened a burger restaurant in a suburb where it was rich moms wanted to eat salads. So I think the location probably didn't work so good for us, but it was a good lesson. And then from there I kind of went out and did my own thing after that. Set up Talented Mr. Fox as a company and did a pop-up, and that pop-up did really well for the venue that I was in, and we decided to keep it there for a short while until the hotel was sold. And yeah, that was kind of my journey. I started on my own.
Tell us more. Which one was your first 100% solo adventure?
Talented Mr. Fox.
Yeah, like what was the first venue you opened with them?
Talented Mr. Fox was a pop-up within one Leicester Street hotel. A friend of mine had the restaurant, which is a Michelin star restaurant on the ground floor, and they had a bar that no one really knew that there was a bar upstairs. And he's like, "Do you want to come and do like a month? You need something to do, but you want to do something for yourself. it'd be a good opportunity for you to come and do something, but also be a good opportunity for us to get some attention on the bar. So I said yeah, and then after 1 month we took like 10 times more than they'd ever taken in a month before. It's hugely successful. So they asked me to stay. So it's kind of my own venue, but it was very much a pop-up still, until that was in October we did that. And then at Christmas it was the same company who owned Town Hall Hotel where Viaggiante was at the time. And I kind of had an ear that Nuno wanted to close Viaggiante, so I emailed the owner in Singapore and said, I want to take the space where the bar is. And he said, you got to speak to the general manager, but yeah, no, why not? You've done really well in Leicester Street. And then she said, yeah, cool. One more email back, and he said, you can change anything you want, but you got to keep the bar where it is.
Okay.
He's like, I love that bar. And he said, and the other prerequisite is, I've already ordered you tables and chairs.
Okay.
From Malaysia, and they're amazing. He sent me pictures, and I was like, yeah, they're amazing. And that was it.
What happened after that?
So that Peg and Patriot opened in March. So I had a contract with the hotel. They were going to fund the refit. I was going to work with the designers, and then I would basically have a 3-year contract to operate within that space. And we were there for about nearly 4 years. Yep.
So what was the idea behind it, and how did you go about making it happen?
The idea behind Peg and Patriot was about maybe making accessible drinks, sometimes really weird drinks, but having fun with drinks creation. Actually, we were going to try and make as much of it as ourselves. We were going to try and keep everything as much in-house. We weren't going to have a massive back bar. We were going to be really concise and considered, but we were just going to make whatever we wanted to whenever we wanted to, because we could. And it helped that we were inside a hotel, so you've always got a traffic from guests staying in the hotel. It's a 98 bedroom hotel, so there's always a flow, which if I was in a standalone venue probably would have been a bit more cautious. But it was in a hotel where we had the opportunity to do some cool stuff. I think Peg and Patriot was great. We didn't make any lists, we didn't win, we won a Time Out award for most creative bar, but I think it was a really, really good bar to hang out and have fun in.
So you mentioned the fact that that was a hotel bar and it helped you somehow with footfall. Do you think that nowadays opening a standalone venue in London is nearly impossible? Or?
No, it's not nearly impossible because people are still doing it. It's really challenging because I think once you're a multiple operator, it's quite easy because you have trading history, you have a background. You can go to a landlord and say, this is my background, this is my pack, and he can see that you're probably going to pay his rent, and ultimately all the landlord cares about is if you're going to pay rent or not, if you're going to pay it on time, and making him believe that you're going to pay his rent. Whereas if it's your first venue, if you've worked somewhere else and won awards, it's part of your CV. But to go to a landlord and say, I've got no trading history, take a punt on me, I'm going to pay your rent, is a challenge. And there's so many people that trying to look at every single site. For a landlord, he's always going to pick his safe bet. He's always going to pick a multiple operator who's going to pay his rent. So it can be hard. That's why generally you see some bars now opening in suburbs slightly out of the city centre, because it gives bartenders the opportunity to take a site that might have been closed for a while, and the landlord's more likely to take a punt on you.
You are now a multiple business owner, and you have open venues and been in the business for a while. What recommendations would you give to someone who's wants to open his bar now?
Be really considered about marketplace, as in what's happening in the marketplace. Like, are people making any money in the area where you're looking to open? Have a really good graphic designer to bring to life a landlord pack, and have an amazing pack that you can go, this is me, and make it really visual, because ultimately the first time that anyone's going to see anything about you is in an email. So making an impact in an email is really challenging, but it's also really important to have the visuals right, because if you find a venue you like, you're fortunate enough to have raised some funds and you have the money in place, the biggest obstacle is someone saying yes to you taking the venue. So I think that is really important, and also being passionate about your concept, because when you present your idea, you've got to be pretty good at sales too. You've got to sell in your idea. And also, I think opening bars is not easy, but it's also like incredibly rewarding. And so I think if you want to do it, there's no time like the present, because it's going to take you a little while to do it. So some bartenders, I had a bartender who worked for me in Peg and Patriot, Constanza was like, in the future I think I might go back to Portugal and I might look to open a bar. I've been fortunate, I've got a little bit of money. And I was like, why not do it now? And she said, I'm not ready. I was like, you're never going to be ready. No one's ever ready to open their first bar. But you are ready. You should do it. Ultimately, you're going to learn. You're going to be able to talk to people. You're going to be able to gain experience from people. You're going to ask advice from people. There's no time like the present. If it's something you want to do and there's a venue, you've got some money, I say go for it.
Is there anything you regret of what you did?
No.
Like, in terms of nothing?
There's things I wish I'd done differently, but do I regret them? Probably not. I think we're humans and we should learn from everything. And those mistakes, or should I say, or things I've done that I wish I'd learned from, they've probably made me a little bit more cautious than I used to be. I was probably a bit more gung-ho when I was a bit younger, but they're lessons to learn from, to improve, and so you don't make. I think if you make the same mistake twice, then there'd be a regret. Yeah. But if you learn from it and take it as a learning thing, I think they're valuable. Learning is like really valuable for us as bartenders, but also as humans.
Tell us what happened after Peg and Patriot.
Peg and Patriot, I really wanted to do a standalone. Scout had been manifesting through some menus that we'd done at Peg and Patriot. I could see like there was a clear direction that I wanted to take what I was doing, and at the time we were thinking about doing the Scout concept as a menu, and then through a consultancy job, I met a guy who owned some restaurants, and I was talking to him saying I wanted to do something myself. And he said, look, maybe we should do it together. Back at the time then, because I'd worked as a pop-up in a hotel, I essentially didn't have any trading history other than my consultancy that I was doing. And he had 6 pubs, I think, and 3 restaurants. So he had trading history, so it was nice to be able to take that into meetings. And then we found the site on Great Eastern Street. And we met the landlord, and they were like a family-run landlord, and he loved the concept, and he offered us the space in the meeting, and we weren't ready financially, so we had to find a way of making it work. And then Scout opened. I think everything was so considered, precise, and the first weekend we opened, I knew that Scout in Shoreditch was going to be a challenge.
Why?
Location. Mm-hmm. We're sandwiched between 2 really big late night venues with big queues at the weekend. Their queues would converge on us. They weren't necessarily the nicest people in the street. There's like 2-for-1 cocktails, like Magaluf style, like go and have a free drink right outside our door. And so the clientele that we were hoping for from the Clove Club and all these places in probably weren't going to walk around to our venue. And I knew that this was something that we're going to have to work towards and challenge, and ultimately it was a challenge for us. So when the opportunity came around through the landlord selling the office space upstairs, and the new owners wanting to buy Scout, for me there was an opportunity to take the venue to a new location and actually secure our future.
Talk to us a little bit about Scout, the idea behind it, and how did you come about? The venues that you open probably are a reflection of where you are in terms of your career development, I guess, right? So I think that the latest creation of yours is Scout, so it must be the most evolved representation of who you are as a bartender.
Yeah, like Scouts, people talk about sustainability all the time, but Scout's not really, it's not sustainability, and zero waste for us is not the most important part of what we do. It's about like what's in your area, where are your surroundings. So it was about, let's go and forage things, let's let's go and find local producers, farms, and let's go and buy the freshest ingredients. The freshest ingredients are obviously going to taste better than non-fresh ingredients, which means that theoretically your drink should taste better, or your food should taste better. So it was kind of this idea of living within your surrounds. And actually, Britain's an amazing place. When you scrape away at it, I think we have the best berries in the world, because we have this cold climate and then this warm bit of weather, and these berries ripen. And I think when berry season hits the UK, it's a magical place to eat, like incredible. But also, there's amazing produce in Scotland. There's so many farms. It can be a great place to eat fresh ingredients. The UK actually imports a lot of stuff around Europe. We import produce and export produce, and there's like this crossover of produce. Like, why? Why we're just not eating our own stuff?
Importing berries from Spain.
Yeah, it's Spain. There's like tomatoes come from Spain. Isle of Wight tomatoes. You know, this famous Isle of Wight tomato grown in Spain. It's crazy. And there's like berries coming from Netherlands, and we're like shipping our berries to somewhere else. It's like, what's going on?
So, how much time did you spend with producers, if any?
Quite a bit to learn the process. Like a lot of time talking online, because it's not always easy to get out. But also we did an incredible amount of research about London itself, because there's so much produce on the street, and I think it's mental that you don't until you open your eyes to it, you don't even see it. But there's plums, pears, apples, everyday fruit that you can pick from a street in most suburbs in London. There's like so much mint, like literally over the road. There's figs and fig trees and fig leaves on your doorstep in this crazy cosmopolitan city with not very many parks, not much greenery, and there's like trees and stuff growing on the street. It's amazing.
That's quite incredible. How does your venue stack against places like Operation Dagger, for instance? Because you have a lot of similarities in terms of...
Me and Luke are really close friends. Uh-huh. So I think a lot of ideas manifest between ourselves, and then there's a lot of times before we start putting drinks on the menu, we message each other and we go, bastard, he's already done that one. We're going to start again. So there's a lot of similarities, but also there's a lot of difference. We do make drinks similar, but the way we get to that end goal is very different. Mm-hmm. We have very similar equipment, but the presentation is Luke's better at garnishes than I am. Okay. So the drinks do look a little different, but the structure of the drink can be very similar. But how we get to that point can sometimes be very different. So it's really nice to talk to him, and we share a lot of ideas with each other.
I think from my side, having been on the other side of your bars, one of the things that I always found very interesting about your drinks is this concept of being very clean. Yeah. But like also there's a certain element of symmetry. Yeah. Like, having a round glass with a smaller round dot in the middle. Yeah. Like, is this something that you take into consideration when you make your drinks, or is it more about the pursuit of aroma and flavor?
For me, the pursuit is the best drink possible. How you get to that point, it can vary. Mm. But also, I'm obsessed with sugar.
In what sense?
The balance between the weight in your mouth and something being too sweet. So I always err on this side of caution with sugar, and I think the drinks always do taste clean. I always try and take out all sediment, and also always try and use a really fine glass, because I think things taste better from a fine glass rather than a thick lipped glass. Mm-hmm. And then symmetry is not something that I've ever thought about. Okay. But now you say it, there is generally a lot of symmetry.
There are a lot of bars that have, you mentioned Niger, right? Or like where drinks are very, very complex, and there's a lot of elements, and they're beautiful to look at, and they have beautiful glassware. And I think they're very elaborate, while you go on the opposite side, like being extremely minimalistic, but having these small elements of symmetry that make you think that it's not that I forgot to garnish it, or I don't care about garnishing, is that this is the way I see my drink happening. At least this is how I perceived it from my side.
I think sometimes drinks don't need garnishes. If I don't like garnishes that float, that just sit in a drink floating around. But I sometimes see the benefit of an elaborate garnish too. Like sometimes I see a drink and it's got this amazing garnish that, like the guys at Oriel or Nitro or Marion's, and I'm like, wow, that drink looks incredible. But then I see something that looks so simple, and you drink it, and it has so much flavour, and it hits you in the face with this like magic of what the fuck. I think this is a special thing. So I generally like to do things clean, but yeah, I like the simplest. I like the magic between seeing something and drinking it, and seeing a reaction.
That's a very cool approach. When it comes to Scout, we mentioned that you're moving here to Australia. You told us why you thought Australia was a good move. What are the challenges that you can see here?
Scout in Sydney will be different in the way that we won't be completely table service. Sydney, people like to stand at the bar and order drinks. It blows my mind. It blows my mind that people don't want to sit with their friends and talk to their friends and have someone bring them a drink. And they want to go and stand at the bar on their own, hot, and like try and get someone's attention, and then I struggle carrying all the drinks back to the table. It literally blows my mind that but they all want to do it. It's not everyone, but a lot of people want to go to the bar and stand at the bar and order drinks. So I don't want to try and change people by going, this is the way we do it, because people have a way of life here, and I'm not going to try and change people's way of life. I want to join in. So the venue's going to be kind of where the bar is, will be vertical drinking. There'll be some tables, there'll be seats at the bar, but there will be vertical drinking. There'll be an opportunity to stand at the bar and chat to the bartender and order drinks over the bar. And then there'll be a table service area. If you want to have your table and still go and order at the bar, that's fine. But I would say it's going to be less structured in terms of service style. We'll still give everyone an amuse. We'll still do what we do with drinks and Scout and the way we go about it, but you just might be standing up instead.
Does this change the way you think, like you go about making your drinks, or not really?
I've changed a couple of the drinks from original concept after being here. We generally use a lot of whiskey in London. We not completely whiskey drinks, but we might add structure and backbone with 5 ml of whiskey or 10 ml of whiskey just to change the back note of a drink, whereas Australia is very white spirit led. And maybe in the future we might look to introduce these, but it is summer at the minute. And we'll definitely be going down a much more white spirit led menu to start off with. There are some whiskey drinks on the menu that we are putting a section on the menu that is very identifiable. It's going to have an espresso martini on the menu. There's going to be a vodka soda. There's going to be a whiskey soda. Granted, if you want to drink a vodka soda, it's going to have green ants in it. But we're putting 3 drinks that are very identifiable to make the approach seem easier.
You mentioned Espresso Martini. Is that Australia probably is the coffee capital of the world right now? Do you have a certain emphasis on coffee in your venue? Or?
Not in terms of coffee service. We're a night venue, so coffees won't necessarily be a part of everyday service. It's something that I've been very conscious about, the fact that if we're going to put an espresso martini on the menu, it has to be fucking amazing. Otherwise, we don't make it at all.
That makes sense.
Because Martin Hudak's here.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you want the best espresso martini, you're going to go and see him. So if we're going to put one on the menu, it might be a little different. It might be our style, but it'll still be an espresso martini style drink, and you need to drink it and go, yeah, that's amazing. Otherwise, you can go and buy one from someone who makes a classic somewhere else that's really, really good. So yeah, we've probably made that drink the most to try and get it right.
Okay.
Out of all of the drinks we've made, that's the one drink that we have to nail this drink. So good.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your book. What motivated you towards writing a book?
My wife.
Oh, that's good.
For me, having a book was not always something that was part of the plan. I'm not very good at sitting in the same place for a very long time. I'm not a great reader. I don't read books from front to back. I look through and research and cross-reference. So it wasn't ever part of the plan. So when the opportunities came up, I was like a bit unsure about doing it, whether I wanted to do it, whether I had the brain power to sit and write a book, because it's a time-consuming thing to write a book. And my wife was like, no, right, do it. It's important. So yeah, without an amazing ghostwriter that had Imogen, it wouldn't have been possible. So yeah, we wrote the book. Actually, the editing part and the process part is the challenging part, because I had a ghostwriter. Writing it was the easy part. Making sure every single recipe is written out exactly the same way all the time is something that takes a lot of time and patience.
So you talk a lot about the relationship in between chefs and bars. Like, how did you go about this thing in your day-to-day business? Like, how close do you work with your chefs? And
we don't employ any chefs, so the relationship between bartender and chef is massive. It's quite far apart because we don't employ anyone. But because we do a lot of consultancy, we've been really fortunate to work in a lot of Michelin star restaurants and to gain access into this world. And if you stand in the kitchen and watch chefs prep and watch the way they go about life, bartenders and chefs are very similar. Yes, if you're a bartender and you don't do any prep and you like juice some limes and stuff like that, and you work in a venue like this, then your relationship between a chef is probably quite far apart. But if you work in a prep heavy bar venue, we might work differently in terms of the way we set our stations out, but we have the same principles. So I think bartenders and chefs are becoming closer and closer. The need to serve food in bars is meaning we're having to get closer and closer. The need for restaurants to serve better cocktails is meaning we're getting closer and closer. So I think it's a different approach. I like to lead with flavour first. So chefs extract flavour differently to us. So there's so many things we can learn from chefs. Likewise, the way that we extract flavour into liquid is totally different to the way the chefs extract flavour into a solid. So I think there's so much we can learn the way we extract flavour that there's things to learn from each of us, and actually you can take it into all kinds of things.
So let's talk a little bit about Matt when he's not working. You mentioned cricket.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a good friend of mine, Zdenek, I'm sure you know him, and he said that every day he needs to do something for at least 1 hour that is completely unrelated to what he's doing, as a profession, in order for him to be more productive of what he does.
Yeah.
What's that one thing that you do? Is it like still sports or?
I don't think I have one. I work a lot. I answer my phone probably too much, like all the time. But I like to get out into nature. It's the one thing that I do like being here, like being in the ocean is magical. Like being at the beach is a magical thing. Even just going for a walk and seeing the harbour and in the boats, or going out into the bush and seeing like animals is something that's necessary for me as a person, being outside.
And how about traveling? Is it a huge part of who you are, or?
Yeah, I would say so. Traveling when you have a business and getting around is more challenging, but the need to travel in this industry is necessary as a modern day business owner and bartender. So yeah, travel is definitely important, and I think being in Australia, opening up Asia is massive. Well, Asia's still quite far away. Everything's far away from here.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's
still 8 hours.
But
away.
it's still 4 hours less than flying from the UK.
Let's talk a little bit about our industry and where we are at the moment. I'm sure you are aware of Pour as a project and some of the challenges that they tackle. How do you think that we're moving towards things like diversity in the workplace and things like that? Do you think the industry is moving towards a positive direction, or do you still think it's a problem, or you have never seen it as an issue?
I think change is definitely always a positive, but I think it's something that definitely needs more work. The balance between male-female is still heavily weighted towards men. And yeah, I understand that we work late. Men and women getting home from work is different. For a woman to get home from work late at night, 2 a.m, the challenges, whereas a man can just jump on a bus or he can get in a taxi and be fine. So there's definitely, it's definitely not going to change overnight. But I think the more we encourage change is better. You see a lot more female chefs, much more prominent female chefs. There's much more female bartenders, but we still need more.
Agreed. And looking at one of the core elements of what you talked about is the impact on the environment of our venues. And you mentioned that Scout takes this into consideration more of as a byproduct of what your concept is, like what is it that's around us, rather than the ultimate goal, as you mentioned. Do you think that other bars are following towards this direction, or do you think it's still something that is a bit niche?
I think it's still quite niche. There's obviously other people, not me in the industry, are pushing the envelope, pushing the sustainability angle way more than I am. So I think it just needs to be a part of life. It's actually being considered in your approach to your trash, to everything, your water waste, your plastics. Plastics is a big issue. Like a massive issue. Like how we tackle plastic waste as an industry is big, far greater than a straw.
Yeah, I think food packaging is a huge issue for us. Like the way that food is shipped, and but also like the amount of glass that we throw away.
Yeah,
like it's a single-use stuff, no, that's killing us as an industry, I think.
So we throw bottles away all the time, but then we buy in these beautiful clear bottles, and sometimes we use ugly bottles all the time. We try not to buy excessive bottles because it's wasteful. And it doesn't look as nice for the guest, but it's ultimately better. We get through a lot of bottles, and I think the big companies need to realise that why can't we buy a case of vodka as one single unit rather than 6 bottles? There's got to be solutions to how we buy spirits in bulk.
It's a huge challenge. I remember when we were working at the American bar with Martin, we approached a huge brand because we were selling loads of it, basically. And we said, is there any way we can buy it? Stop getting bottles. Because for us, the main challenge there was, yes, there's the environmental impact, but also just the logistics of it. It's like so much glass that gets in and out my bar instantly every day for no specific reason. And, for branding reasons, that's not possible. So, looking forward to see some change in that specific perspective. So, talking to you as a person, when you go out, what kind of bar is it that makes you happy?
Most of them.
Okay, that's good.
I think bars are there to have fun in, and so I think we take the industry a bit too seriously sometimes. I think if you're going out, any venue is going to be fun, and I think maybe we pick the bones in things a bit too much, and rather than sitting and having a good time with your friends and losing sight of the fact that you're out with your partner, your wife, your friends, and just actually being in the moment with your friends at the time, rather than deciding if you like something or not. Do you like a venue? Just go somewhere and enjoy it, rather than looking to criticise or talking about the positives. Like, just go and have fun. Like, most places make tasty drinks, and if you don't have a tasty drink, they'll probably make you something that's tasty. Yeah. So I think going out is about having fun and being with your friends and hanging out. So I like going to most places. I like going to cocktail bars. I like going to a pub and having a beer.
One of the key elements of bars, I think, it's music.
Yep.
Is this something that you enjoy looking into, or is it more like I have to do it kind of thing?
No, for me, I like listening to hip hop. But I think there's a merit to a lot of music. Music's very important. Finding the balance between what you like and what is the right for your venue is obviously always a challenge. I'm lucky enough that I know a few people who they specialise in music, like DJs and stuff. So our playlist for Scout is curated by a hip hop DJ. So it's definitely finding the right balance. Is also keeping it fresh as well. Like if you've got guests that come all the time, they don't want to hear the same music all the time. So it's having enough. So it's different as well.
Cool. Last question of the day, but we ask this question to everybody. You're about to be executed. Last drink.
Whiskey, neat. and a really fucking big mayo.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.